Hi, this is Kirk Davis. I'm here with Randy Wiskerson and Tom Morris of GMN Logistics, and I want to welcome them today to this conversation and a chance for those of you who are listening to understand what they do and what they're offering. So GMN Logistics, they're reducing freight costs through intelligent data management, which I think is really cool and it's really high tech and which is appropriate today. And Tom and Randy are co-founders of GMN Logistics, and these guys are one of the leading companies in the freight and data management industry. Over the next few minutes, we're going to discuss how they're helping businesses save on freight costs through intelligent data management. With over 15 billion in freight managed, they offer the most competitive rates and immediate 20 to 30% savings with real-time rate shopping via their custom transportation management system and meaningful parcel insurance coverage. Additionally, they support all modes of transportation, including parcel, LTL, FTL, ocean, intermodal, and air freight. Join us as we learn more about GMN Logistics and how they're helping business owners like you save money and become more efficient. So welcome, Randy and Tom.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Kirk. We appreciate that wonderful introduction. Like you said, maybe a little more we could share in our background. Tom and I always look so forward to speaking or talking with the leadership of companies involved with organizations like camps, and remaining competitive in today's marketplace is really at the top of the list for many or most successful companies. That means that business leaders have to look around every corner, underneath every rock, to find ways to be more efficient and profitable. And Tom and I realize this and understand it because we came out of that world and we understand the challenge. 3 years ago, we set out to develop and provide unique cost-saving solutions to help different companies improve their competitiveness. And believe it or not, the first idea we went after was freight management. And because of the opportunities that we've uncovered, it really has become our primary focus, with everything else being put on the back burner. So we've been spending our time to develop relationships with many companies and introducing the best freight providers to address all areas of a company's freight process, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in a few minutes. And our business has prospered significantly because many businesses just don't understand freight. And Tom and I have had the opportunity to help them, and we're going to share some of those insights today with the leadership from the companies that are part of camps. Tom, you can add anything that you want. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can start with the first point that we wanted to make.
Great. Well, thank you, Randy. And once again, thank you, Kirk, for allowing Randy and I to share some insights with you and your members today. So really, the first question I think that everybody needs to ask themselves, and I think the CEOs and CFOs, C-level people within companies across this country ask themselves is, who makes the decisions in my company, and specifically, who makes the freight decisions, and how do they go about making those decisions? What do they use? Do they make it on a unilateral basis or by committee, or is there an individual that's in charge of that aspect of their business? And then what factors do they use? Do they use local organizations to help them make their decision? Do they use their CFO and their accounting department? Do they use what they find on the internet? A lot of times people do research on the internet to understand what's out there and what they may be missing and what they may have already done very, very well. And then how often do they make those decisions? So annually, as well as, the other end of the spectrum being daily. Are they really working that process and understanding the ins and outs of their freight process on a very minute scale or in a very infinite scale?
So Randy, Tom and Randy, we've had this conversation before because I've been very interested in your process, because in the executive roles that I've been in, freight was an afterthought. Maybe at the end of the year, looking through the budget, a decision that was made by people on the ground trying to get the freight in or out, but it wasn't always like a top of the mind, issue on the executive level. So what's been your experience in terms of helping executives understand, that this is something really worth taking a look at?
That's a great question. So anecdotally, we have a client who we met initially, and in the beginning we asked all the right questions, and he provided us with a lot of data, only to find out that he was not aware of his freight process, and he really wasn't aware of all the different things and items and variables that go into play. And so consequently, as we moved through our process, he eventually got to a point where he said, I'm so happy that I talked to you, because I didn't even know this existed. And quite frankly, I didn't even know we were paying the amount of money and who we were paying the amount of money to. So there's a lot of people in that area that
Yeah.
are so busy with so many different to-dos that sometimes freight gets kind of lost in the shuffle. And that's something that Randy and I really pride ourselves on, is bringing the focus back to not only the overall process, but then specifically where the challenges are in that process, and helping them with those challenges and growing with them and staying in touch with them. It's a very relationship-based organization that we put together.
One of the things that occurred to me was how difficult it was to understand, freight. I don't know, the freight billings. I think they were very complicated. And then if I was being overcharged in some way, it was really hard to uncover that. So I think that's where a lot of what you do comes in. And I think manufacturers will be surprised when they think of their inbound and outbound freight, how many opportunities there are for savings. And those, and not, I think it's not only savings, but sometimes it's getting a better, maybe a better or an easier connection to the customer, or even customers who are further away, which seemed unaffordable before. So I think there's some really good things in store here.
Sure.
Yeah.
You make a really good point, Kirk, when you talk about, it's not really all about the savings. A lot of times there's, because Tom and I look at and our service looks at freight from a process perspective. We look at every step in the process, and yeah, there are savings associated with some of those, but a lot of times it's there's a lot of efficiencies and inefficiencies to be considered. And we want to make sure that the companies that we work with not only are saving the money, but they're improving things like customer service and visibility and those kind of things that are important. Some of the businesses we work with are real time sensitive businesses, and they have to make sure things get in a certain place at a certain time. So if you have circumstances like that, you can save them all the money in the world, but if the shipment doesn't get there and they miss an insertion date or something like that, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Randy, I would add to that, and Kirk touched on it a little bit there at the end of his point, and that is, all the people that are affected ultimately by the decision that's made in this grand process of freight. Everything from, the shop floor with inbound materials to the employees that are actually on the dock and having to move, and they're waiting for a truck, or they're waiting for two trucks, and they've got to manage that shipping area. And then you've got accounting, to your point, Kirk, about cost and cost structure and profitability. You have somebody in accounting that, somebody in the shipping department is making a decision, and then someone in accounting is having to go back and figure out what decision they made and was it the right decision. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and when you're talking to a C-level individual, it's important that they understand that this kind of process and what we're talking about here will affect a lot of people, not only as Randy mentioned, the customers and on the outside, but also a lot of people on the inside. And we hope to the positive. We hope it makes a positive change.
Okay. The second topic that we wanted, or the issue we wanted to address was, how is your freight being managed as a process or a one-time event? That might sound kind of strange, but more often than not, when Tom and I take a look at the inner workings of the freight process, it really is looked at like a necessary evil and a one-time event for many companies. And when you look at it as a one-time event, you are really missing a lot of opportunity. When Tom and I map out a freight process, we look at freight from the time the raw materials leave your suppliers until the finished product reaches your customer's dock. And there's a lot of moving pieces in there that need to be looked at. They need to be managed, and they need to be managed well in order to maximize the efficiency of the freight process. Too often, and I'm guilty of this, I came out of a world where we did a lot of work with the automotive industry and the appliance industry. And, leadership is worried about getting new products developed, getting production done on time, the quality of those products going out, and freight does become a secondary issue. So it's like the products coming off the line, and we're making decisions like, we don't care how you get it there, just get it there so you don't shut the line down and avoid some kind of unnecessary penalty. And when companies do that, they're really missing an opportunity to manage that whole process better. So you'll hear Tom and I talk a lot about the freight process. And again, I think a lot of companies look at it just like a one-time event.
So Randy, can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
A lot of, in my experience, freight processes were they were put together out of necessity, meaning this is what we had to do. So it's not like it was thought out or designed to be a better experience for the company or to be a better experience for the customer. So when companies are kind of entrenched, and the people who are doing it are entrenched in, this is the way we do it, but now you're coming in and saying, let's not think of this as a one-time event, but let's think about it as a process. How painful, from your experience, is this to adapt? So a company is doing it one way, and you're saying, now let's change our focus here to think of it as a process. Is it painful? Is that hard to change? Or do you get resistance?
Well, I guess there's always resistance, Kirk, but what Tom and I try to do is map out the benefits. When you can bundle together inbound freight, outbound freight, and whatever else is in between there's so many opportunities to leverage a bigger spend and get a better price or better cost. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, because a lot of times we find the people that are managing the freight or making the freight decisions grew up in the company. They were not to belittle a dock worker or anything like that, but they really haven't been trained properly. So we try to make it as painless as possible. We're trying to engage with those people and try to make them the heroes. We want the ideas that we're bringing forward to come through them, so they can not only be in a position to help present them to management, but able to realize the benefits to the job they do every day. We make their job easier. We make the process more cost effective. And if you have the right people in the right places, that goes a lot better than what you'd think. But resistance is definitely something that Tom and I come across a lot.
Yeah, I would add to that, Kirk, and anecdotally, once again, I think a number of companies that we work with, and obviously a lot of your members are involved in lean manufacturing. And really what Randy and I have been able to do is provide, solution providers that are going to lean out that process. And a lot of times with lean, there's a lot of people in those different sectors of the plant floor that don't know anything about lean, right? But eventually they learn, they understand why something needs to happen, and then they're also involved. So we found a lot of people, right down to the person on the dock, they have to be included and involved and collaborative in the change. Otherwise, you are pushing the rock uphill, and it's very cumbersome. But once again, the reason that, and we're so thankful that you're giving us an opportunity to talk to the C-level people within your membership, is that's where it starts. So,
Yeah.
it has to start at the top, and they have to lead lead the charge. But ultimately, everyone's going to be part of the charge, and needs to be part of the charge. So,
Well, and it's, when you put it in context of lean and achieving a lean goal, I think this will fit right in to what manufacturers are really trying to achieve. And when we work with and we see the staffs of these people, they're equally committed to that lean goal. So in a way, this will become, I think, kind of a natural way to lean out, because I think in your process, you're leveraging technology, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. I'd like to make one more point before we leave this topic, Kirk. When a company doesn't manage this as a process, this is what often happens. The shipment is out, it gets to the shipping dock, and now the shipper has to make a decision how he's going to move that product. So a lot of times people get fooled into thinking, well, I'll just call, I'll go out to the broker boards and I'll find a broker that's going to give me the best rate. And they think that that's a good way to minimize their freight expense. But more times than not, that broker is trying to make a living too. So he or she's got to put a markup on that shipment. And we find that more often than not, good asset-based carriers are more concerned about, are more than happy to give a better rate, because they want a long-term relationship and they want those shipments over a period of time versus a spot buy here and there. So we always challenge management and leadership to at least look at that. And we're going to talk about technology in a few minutes, and that'll help them kind of wade through the best way to do that and how to build the best relationships to get the best service and the best rates. So excellent. Tom, I'll turn it over to you, Tom.
Yeah, I think, Randy, that's a great segue, because I think the next point that we wanted to talk about was technology. And obviously, Kirk, you and your members know what technology is. You're in the hotbed of technology, right? In so many different ways and in so many different industries. And so, this idea of technology has come a long way in the freight industry. It used to be, and as Randy mentioned, there's a number of shippers out there that are still going out to the internet and still using the internet to find the best option to ship, and maybe going to a broker board or going to a carrier direct and saying, oh, this is right for me. I've always done this, use this carrier. I know what my options are, and they're just very tunnel vision, because once again, they have to get the box out, right? They have to get the pallet out. So what we found in our 3 years is technology is really where it lives. The ability to put data in and then get data out and manage the data throughout the whole process. I mean, to the point of knowing where your shipment is, knowing that you were charged correctly in the moment. If you were charged incorrectly in the moment, actually changing and auditing that in the process. So by the time it hits the customer's dock, you've actually vetted that all out and managed that all out of the ultimate price, which means that your invoice is correct. And now back to the accounting department, they're recognizing and reconciling the right number with the right purchase order, right? So all those things can only happen when the data flow is flowing correctly and in the right direction. So TMSs, there's a bunch of TMSs out there, and we know that there's a bunch of TMSs out there. I think the key is to have a good team of people behind the TMS. So when the data gets input by the shipper, which is, the person on the dock, let's say, or the person in customer service, the moment that data gets put in, it's accurate and it's up to the moment, so that it can be used in the process as well as after the process for reporting and different things like that. So once again, technology, a huge part of the freight industry today.
So a lot of this is automated, essentially.
Correct. Yeah. In fact, automated to the point of the information going in has to be accurate, and everything is based on that accurate information. And so a number of our solution providers will set up templates, and they'll set up very easy to use one-click drop-down menus so that it's very simple and it's user-friendly. And the individual, once again, that's part of that lean process, really feels as though I'm not lifting a lot of weight here. It's all been done for me. So if I do make a mistake, it's not because, I missed something. It's because there wasn't something in the platform, and I need to bring that to my manager's attention. And we've got to add to the platform and keep evolving the platform.
And you can, so all of this becomes self-guided in a way. So it's harder to make a mistake, say, than the traditional ways. Yeah.
One of the other interesting things that Tom and I have seen in the few years that we've been involved with this, maybe over the last 3 years, just how rapidly this technology is advancing. When we first started hearing about and getting involved with TMSs, they were kind of like a one-legged stool. They could only handle maybe LTL or truckload or parcel. Now the platforms are capable of putting almost every mode of freight into the TMS. So the management team has, one portal where they can look at all the moving pieces for all their different freight. The other thing that's pretty interesting, Tom and I just got off of a call a few minutes ago where we have a client that it's emphatic that the TMS is able to track shipments. It happens to be in the construction world. And on a construction site, if they're waiting for a certain material or whatever, they want to be able to go into a TMS and see exactly where that shipment is. And they're getting so good, they have trackers on these trucks, whatever, and they can say, hey, the truck is 15 minutes away or it's an hour and a half away, and they can plan accordingly to have all the right support on the site when that shipment hits. But I'm fascinated. It seems like every week or every month there's some new bells or whistles being added to that. So
yeah, wow. It's stunning to me actually how technological and automated our world is becoming, which leads me to a question of would a small to medium-sized manufacturing company have to staff up to do this? Is this something that's going to take more people?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kirk, and I think it falls into kind of both the question I started with and then the question that we're talking about now with the technology. Technology should be used in such a way where you're not adding people to do that, and that's exactly what a lot of our solution providers provide. Is the technology takes that person out, so the person can actually focus on what their job is, not on trying to figure out what do I do after I'm done with my job. So wearing one hat for that person that's putting the data in, or that one hat of moving the crate from dock to truck is really important. But I think even more important for the people that we're talking to today is the ability, as Randy mentioned, the ability to use the technology and the data coming out in the reporting aspect of it to be able to make good, solid business decisions in the moment, in the week, in the month, in the quarter, in the year, so that you know where you were, you know where you are, and you know where you're going. And it's not based on, I remember, something to that effect. It's based on actual data. And that is worth its weight in gold. And once again, back to that earlier point about how easy they make it very, very easy, because the easier they make it to put the data in, it's very easy to then take that data and massage it into a report that the C-level individual can really use to do their job.
So, Tom, what I'm hearing in that is a level of transparency that maybe we haven't had before when it comes to inbound and outbound freight, which could help answer questions from the customer level or from the management level. But the idea is for the first time, maybe we've got transparency that, again, help us make better decisions, help us serve the customer better, things of that nature.
Yeah, in fact, I'd say to be preemptive. So actually, like Randy had mentioned, knowing where the truck is. So you could call your customer and say, hey, there was a storm in the Colorado Rockies. It's not going to get to Seattle on Tuesday morning. It's going to get there on Wednesday morning. We just wanted you to be aware of it. So once again, customer service is you're proactive instead of reactive, and all that anxiety goes away because you can actually prove to them. You can actually send them a link and say, here's your truck, right? So it's very,
that could be very
supportive.
meaningful. Yeah, that could be very helpful, very meaningful.
Yeah, yeah. One of the other things in this vein is that this technology is getting so good that a shipper and the leadership team can actually run reports that show how you ship something and what could you save if you would have shipped it a little bit different. A lot of companies don't look at just cost. They look at a couple areas. They look at reliability, they look at cost, and there's probably a couple other metrics. And these reports, you can go in and you can actually say, do the what ifs. If I wanted to cut my service level back just a little bit and I was able to save 10% more on my shipments, you can make adjustments like Tom's talking about on the fly, and they'll hit your bottom line almost immediately. It's just really, really nice technology.
Yeah, and I would add to that too, Randy, because obviously, Kirk, you're on the West Coast, and so there's a need for ocean. There's a need for drayage. There's a need for outbound ocean as well as inbound ocean. TMS is just as strong on the ocean side, and the ability to see those containers and where they are and when they're coming in, and then also to take them from port and get them to your warehouse or get them to where they need to go. Once again, peace of mind when the technology is up to that level. For a C-level individual, that really helps when you have to go and report to the board on a quarterly basis, and you actually have the data to support your report.
Well, that's fantastic. And I've talked to manufacturers who have automated other parts of their operation, and one of the things that they have said in that is they said, I feel like I got my person back. Where the people are kind of like always solving problems, always hair on fire, reactive, as you were mentioning, and now with a system like this, now they're proactive, they're skating to where the puck is going, and like you said, some semblance of confidence and foreknowledge that puts everybody more at ease. I think that's a wonderful benefit.
Yeah. Okay, well, the last topic that we get to talk about is one of my favorite, and Tom's too. We when we go into a company, we hear this quite a bit, and it's really the question is, are you being misled by playing the rate discount game? So when Tom and I go into a company and we're talking to the person overseeing freight, and they'll say to us, well, I'm not so sure we're interested in looking at our freight. You wouldn't believe it, Randy, Tom, we're getting a 75% discount on our rates. And when we hear that, the flag goes up automatically because the first question we ask is, you're getting a 75% discount rate off of what? Was that rate artificially inflated to start with? And usually carriers use this because they are making a lot of money off of you, and it's a way to distract you from having somebody else take a look at your rates to see how competitive they really are. And part of this goes back to the area we just covered, and that's that's one of the other great features about a good TMS. You can actually you can rate shop. So hey, why would it hurt for you to take a look at what you think you're getting as far as this discounted rate versus what the real world is? And more often than not, they're being taken advantage of when we hear that.
Wow. So let me ask, because I've actually heard people say that they feel proud about the discounts they're getting. I've already negotiated. I'm getting the best price ever. But you're thinking that there's discounts that are available through your management system that
Sure.
otherwise are hard to access.
nothing against salespeople, but what a good salesperson for a carrier does is, if it's a lucrative account, they're going to try to beat you to the punch. They're going to come to you and say, before you even start thinking about going out and looking for maybe to see if you're competitive, they're gonna make you that offer. Hey, Kirk, we really value your business, and we appreciate it. In fact, we're gonna move your discount rate from 65 to 70% because you're a really valued customer, and you can guarantee that same guy is walking down the street to the next shipper and maybe even your competitors and telling them the same thing. And I'm not saying that sometimes that they aren't competitive, but we find more often than not that it's just a ploy that they use to make you feel comfortable. And Tom and I have to work hard to try to work around that and say, hey, what would it hurt if you think your rates are the best? Would you sleep better at night if we could just take a look at them and verify that? And a lot of times we come back and say, hey, or we'll find things like this. Hey, your rates might be competitive, but you're getting killed on accessorial charges and other charges that aren't part of the
there's
rate.
other fees. There's other fees in there that yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and the other thing I would add to that, Randy, is, and we learned it again today, was a lot of these carriers will come in and they'll self-assess versus actually using the data that you have with the TMS. So when it's the deck is definitely stacked in their favor, right? Because if they're coming in, they probably don't feel like they have any competition. If they do have competition, it's maybe one or two. Right. With the TMSs that we're talking about and the solution providers that we're talking about, anywhere from 5 to 10 different carriers providing you rates that can do all the same things, and maybe some of them can do it, to Randy's earlier point, someone can do it more efficiently, someone can do it better on time. So a lot of those different factors that go in. So now, instead of going in and being reactive to that discount, now you're going in and you're saying, hey, I gave you 40% of my freight last year. If you'd like another 20% of my freight, this is what you're going to need to do to your pricing, right? So now it just changes the game, because you're coming from a point of strength, because you own the data, because you know the data, and you're using data to support your direction.
It sure reminds me, Tom, of how car buying has changed now that we have visibility into all of the pricing of the vehicle. So the old days of the used car salesman are pretty much gone. So,
yeah, correct. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I think there's probably more opportunities for a company to benefit than maybe they realize. And hopefully this conversation is leading people to understand that there's an opportunity. But one of the things, and you may have more to talk about, but I did want to mention that you surprised me when you told me that there's actually no cost for what you do. I mean, that's even more surprising. So can you explain why there's no cost to company A, B, or C when they engage with you?
Sure. We're coming to the end of what we wanted to share today, and I guess to wrap up, I mean, there was we talked about 4 things that we just thought would be thought-provoking for the leadership teams at the companies that are involved with your organization and other organizations. But maybe just to back up, Kirk, we want to go through a few points here. You might be asking, where do we start with this whole deal? And part of it is just maybe asking the 4 questions that we asked. Who's making your freight decisions? Are you managing your freight as a process? Are you using proper TMS technology? And are you being misled by the rate discount game? Just some good places to start. But to do what Tom and I do, it requires just a couple months of current data. As far as resources on behalf of the company, 95% or better of the heavy lifting is done by the providers that Tom and I have engaged with. Tom and I pay special attention to make sure that that our providers are making it as easy as possible to engage and get the data, sort the data out. The cost, I think part of the reason the cost is there's no cost associated with this is some of the technology that's available today does a lot of the work for us and for them. So, really the biggest challenge that Tom and I really have when it comes to engaging with a company that's interested in looking at it is getting the data. And I think this is a telltale sign of a lot of companies that we work with. Hey, we want to get some data. We'll get it from your parcel carrier or your LTL or truckload carrier, and we know that they're not even attempting to manage it properly because they don't even know their passwords, their username and passwords to get at the data that requires to do some kind of analysis. So yeah, there's no cost, there's no obligation. Tom and I work with providers where once we get the data, they will go in and slice it and dice it and do their thing, and they'll come back with with a projection. We can't guarantee that every company that we engage with we will save money, but we can tell you the majority of them we do. We did come across a company the other day that we probably could have helped them a little bit, but it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough savings in it to make it worth for their while. So we're very transparent and straightforward on that.
Okay.
And really the way that sometimes companies ask, well, how soon can I start realizing the savings? And that really comes back to how willing they are to work with us, get the data, work through everything, and then sometimes we have solutions where a week or two after we engage, we can actually turn on a savings opportunity, and they can be realizing those savings in a short period of time. Other times, if it's a more complicated process, it might take a little bit longer. But Tom, I didn't mean to steal your thunder there.
No, not at all, Randy. The only thing I would add to that is a lot of our clients, when we're done with our process, look at their freight spend as an asset and not as an expense. And when you start to look at your freight spend as an asset, well, then it really truly has value. And when it has value, then any cost dollar, anything that you can save goes directly to the bottom line, number one. But then number two, exponentially, they're saving more money because they're improving on their process. They're making their employees that much happier because they're making it easy on their employees. And ultimately, they're doing what they're doing in other aspects of their business. They're just doing it in the freight. And they never thought, this one, anecdotally, one of our clients, he never knew he had $800,000 worth of freight. He knew that somebody was handling it and managing it, and the customers were happy. Nobody ever called and said they were upset. But all of a sudden he realized, well, had I taken a little more time and I had the technology that we brought to him, well, now I could save dollars directly to my bottom line, and I could be more efficient. And so when you're starting to talk about just holding your own or growing, those are important capital dollars.
Oh, absolutely. One of I guess I wondered, I was trying to think from a customer standpoint, are you tying them into a contract, like a year or 2-year contract to do this type of service? How does the engagement go?
So it depends on the solution provider. So some solution providers want to set up an agreement that's at anywhere from a year to 3 years. There's other solution providers that will do it. They're very nimble, and they'll do it on a as needed basis. So it really runs the gamut. I think it depends on what type of freight you have and the process that you're working within. And then ultimately it's up to the shipper what they want to choose. So we have a number of different offerings, and then it really does come down, and we'll put a number of offerings in front of the shipper so that they can pick and choose, which one that really fits them and their model.
The TMS system kind of dictates what the opportunities are, and then the shipping companies might have different programs, but your company itself is not tying them into a contract.
No, there's no agreement. Actually, we're very big on building the relationship with the client so that we can move and help the client move in the direction that they want to move in, not the direction that the carrier is coming in and saying that they really should move in. So it's a very agnostic kind of solution and relationship. And we're constantly trying to look at other forms of freight, other areas in their business where we know other solutions that we can provide to them. So we're constantly growing and evolving in that relationship.
Keeping up with the technology. Well, I'd like to mention that I think a lot of the manufacturers would tell you that they are on a lean journey. They're trying to lean out, and we've seen, as we've toured so many different manufacturing facilities, that there's there's training, there's education, there's support. And so I think that part of your conversation here really fits into that lean journey. And the other one that's newer but coming up is this automation journey. So we are trying to automate more and more. And so again, this is where I think what you're talking about leads right into this automation journey.
Sure. It's interesting, Kirk, that in the world I grew up in, when lean first came out, it was really a manufacturing type thing. Everybody wanted to lean out the manufacturing process. But as companies matured and that process matured, they started applying lean techniques to everything, to the designing product, to the sales process.
Yeah.
And like Tom said earlier, we find a lot of places that don't even have a process mapped out for their freight. But again, it can be applied to the freight process very easily. You want to lean out the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, this has been fantastic. So I'm going to put links into the description of the video, and I'll make it really easy for them to reach out to you. But do you want to mention how they might get a hold of you?
Sure. So we have a information email, info@gmnlog.com, and we'll make sure that you have that one.
Okay.
We also have a website, gmnfreight.com. And then once again, we'll make sure that you have our numbers and our direct email addresses. And if there's any questions at all, we love to talk to manufacturers, and e-commerce. I know there's a big e-commerce push. With your membership, there's a lot of manufacturers that have e-commerce portals as well, right? They're selling online, and so we'll take a look at that. There's no question that isn't a good one, and we're happy to answer and field all of them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I want to thank both of you for coming today and sharing this information, because I think it is something that we need to know about. And if we're not aware of it, again, it could become a competitive advantage for our competitors, where we want it to really be a competitive advantage for us.